I recently set myself the challenge of getting Gran Turismo's hardest achievement. It's not licenses, which you can just repeat. It's not the single player campaign, which you can actually make a lot easier with car upgrades. This is the brutal gulag of Gran Turismo Sport Mode and the desperate battle royale to reach A+ driver rating. Now A+ is really the holy grail of any Gran Turismo Sport Mode racer. Personally, I'd been A+ for years, but due to entering some questionable races months ago, I was reset. I knew if I could get back to A+ and document it, I can show you exactly what to do and what not to do if you want to be welcomed into the exclusive club of Gran Turismo's fastest racers. However, this challenge was much tougher than I thought, genuinely. Way tougher than it was getting A+ in Gran Turismo Sport, for example. I met dirty drivers, unfair BOP changes, and even missed a key deadline, which made things way harder. But with the help of my community and a little tool from a real racing driver, I put myself within one race of getting to A+. So let me show you how to do it, and I'll see you at the top. Okay, so as promised, here is how to get to A+. This is how to do it. I'm going to give you lots of tips here. As a bonus as well, I'm going to show you how I dealt with the dirty drivers, and it might not be what you're expecting. So whenever I want to rank up in Gran Turismo, I check out the leaderboard and I try and set myself a rough time. Now, you can see some very fast drivers here like Manu Rodri, who's actually going to come up in this video. And there's drivers that I kind of know are normally around my level. So I can set myself a rough time. You can see I've got my friends on the right hand side as well. And normally if you want to get to A+, you're going to need to be near the front of the grid. Now we're going to talk about this screen later. The reason for that is, and you might not know this, you don't get driver ranking points in Gran Turismo for overtaking cars, for finishing a lot higher than your qualifying. So you don't get points in and of itself for just starting last and finishing first. That's not how you get points. The way it works is essentially, you can think of it almost like poker. The grid all puts DR like into the pot, and then depending on where you finish, it's allocated. So you may as well give yourself the best possible card. You may as well give yourself the best possible chance and qualify as high up as you can. You're not going to be penalised for starting second and finishing second. In fact, to summarise this bit as easy as possible for you to understand, it's better to qualify second and finish 5th than qualify 16th and finish 6th, if that makes sense. If you still got questions, please let me know in the comments of this video, because it's probably one of the most misunderstood things about Gran Turismo Sport Mode and probably stops a lot of people from getting to A+. So because driver rating, or DR, which is the same thing, is allocated on where you finish in a race, we may as well try and start the race in the highest position, especially at a circuit like Spa, which weirdly in Sport Mode, if you start from P7 or below, around there, you get a massive penalty at the start because you have to negotiate the chicane where the other cars don't. So that means we need to do qualifying. So this is day 1, and I'm doing qualifying to start off with. I've done a few laps to run me in. You saw it was like a 2:16 or something. I was kind of getting faster and faster, getting comfortable with the circuit. If you want the really beginner tips on how to drive, the best thing is honestly go to www.getfasteronline.com. That's my GT7 beginner masterclass. That's like the basics, but here we're talking about getting to A+. Now, because I'm trying to look at those fine details and how to get faster, so I've done a few laps. I've got a 2:16 in the bank. You can see on the left hand side, I need to use some tools to help me get faster quicker, if that makes sense, rather than just brute force learning. Because I can keep going around, and through the process of luck and experimentation, I can get a bit faster. But, you know, I do YouTube part-time, I'm working in the day, so when I'm on Gran Turismo, I want to kind of get up to speed as quick as possible. Various tools for that. One of them is Delta, and big thanks to Delta to sponsor this video. This is one tool that I've used. It's not the be-all and end-all tool. Just subscribing to Delta is not going to be a magic solution and make you faster immediately or get you to A+ immediately. However, I found here it was a very important tool in the armory for 2 reasons. The first reason is, once you're comfortable with the track, you can make comparisons with the reference drivers, and one of them is Manu Rodri, who we saw earlier. But unlike just looking at his replay in Gran Turismo, I can actually see his driving line, I can see where he's braking, and I can see his gear changes. So what I can do is I can immediately identify any things that I'm doing massively different to Manu Rodri. So if he's braking significantly earlier or later, or if he's in completely different gears, like 2 gears higher or lower, I can see that off the bat, and I can't really see that clearly when I look at a replay. So this is where Delta is actually quite powerful, I've found. And to give you a specific example, you can see here that I'm lifting on the green line here, whereas Manu Rodri is a lot more flat on the exit here to the back straight at Spa. So I know that's a quick change I can make. Now, as I said, Delta is not going to itself it's not going to drive for you. And you can see here, for example, this corner in the Toyota Supra, I just don't really have the right line to go through there a lot flatter to turn in earlier. I just don't feel as comfortable in the car. So what I actually did is, and this is there's a couple of critical tips in here if you want to get to A+. I went into the Genesis, completely different car, and you can see through this corner, I'm much more comfortable being flat with just the way that I'm approaching it and rotating the car. And I actually go a second quicker off the bat. Now, there's 2, like I said, interesting points here. The first one is, just because you see a certain car topping the leaderboard, it doesn't mean it's going to be the best car for you. Like, none of us watching this are going to be aliens going to the GT World Finals in Dubai or Amsterdam or Monaco or wherever. We're kind of like aiming for the level below that, let's be realistic. But because of that, we might have a wider range of cars that are available to us. Now, not a lot of people at this time were driving the Genesis in this daily race, for another interesting reason, which is there had been a BOP change in the middle of the week. So at the beginning of the week, when this daily race came out, everyone was using the Supra, and the Supra was, I think, actually quite OP at Spa. I'm recording this on a Sunday night, so the last night before the daily races change. But because of the BOP change, the Supra had been nerfed a little bit. And that might sound like, oh, okay, if you go to the Genesis, it's going to benefit you. No, it actually doesn't. Because the Genesis wasn't quite as quick as a Supra, but the Supra had been nerfed. So I'd actually lost the opportunity, if I was comfortable in the Supra, to driving as fast as people who set their times on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday before that BOP change. So what I would say is, if you really want to increase your DR and get to A+, doing it on a Sunday is risky, because there could have been a BOP change to the OP car, which means the fastest possible time at the circuit, theoretically, has got slower, and you can't match it. But you're still going to go up in the race against people who have banked that qualifying time in a now illegal car. It's kind of a little bit bad. But I went around the Supra, and you can see I was immediately quicker. And then I used Delta for a second purpose, which is to really refine. So you can use Delta because it's very clear to see that data in Delta off the bat for those big broad brush changes. But now I know I just want to make a few subtle changes. So I really focused on gear changes. Should I go up a gear before, during, after Eau Rouge, for example? What about on the back straight? Trying to align my gear changes with the aliens. So that's what I was able to do. And that meant my qualifying time was faster than it was previously, like over a second faster. And I entered my race and I started high up, so it all sounds good. This is where the problems really started to mount. On a Sunday evening, the dirty driving was absolutely insane. And this is quite frustrating because I knew I had the qualifying time in the lobby to start around the top 5, top 4, and push for podiums. And if you're going to keep getting podiums, you're going to keep getting hopefully more DR in the lobby. Although I would say this, if you're an A+ driver and for some reason you end up in a sport mode lobby with everyone else's D rank, you could finish that race first and I think still theoretically lose DR. That's how extreme the calculation can get. But in my position as a high A rank driver, if I keep finishing on the podium, I'm just going to end up in higher and higher lobbies. I'm going to be beating, 13 drivers below me who should also be healthy A-rank drivers, and I should get the DR. But I had all these issues with dirty driving, and it just got worse. In fact, the standard of driving was, I think it was really atrocious. And to be honest, you have to go through this phase. Like it's like a graining phase on tyres. If you want to get to the promised land of the A+, super clean lobbies, you need to go through this band of high A turbulence where it's going to be packed full of people who are desperate to get to A+ at any opportunity, or drivers, driving at the maximum of their skill level might be kind of like on the ragged edge, but it can just be brutal. And the reality is, even though I was able to get, some good finishes when I was able to get through the pack and sort of stay clean, my qualifying time wasn't quite competitive enough to be there most of the time. And there was just too much of a risk that I was going to get caught up in an instant and finish last or very much near the back of the race. And that happened quite a lot. So I was comparing my rankings kind of like through the evening, and it would kind of go up and then it would come down and it would be like a snakes and ladders. And the reality is that when you're in this band, yes, you're going to gain a bit of DR if you finish first, second, third, fourth, but you're going to lose so much more DR if you finish last. So I was really at a loss here. I didn't know what to do. I kind of wanted to make it because I had this qualifying time, but the standard of racing just got worse and worse and worse. I would say almost undrivable. Even if you want to drive cleanly, it was just absolutely savage. So I had to make a difficult decision. And I actually had a flight the next day. I was flying to Brazil for the Formula E opening race of the season. And I didn't want to do this, but I wanted to really get this A+. So I made a strategic decision, a big call. I said, look, tomorrow the daily races are going to reset. It's going to be open for everyone. It's going to be a new start. I'm not going to be up against it with the BOP change. I'm going to be on an even level. Let's try it. Let's just go on a Monday, try and smash the quali, use Delta to just get us that extra few tenths, and then go for the A+. So that's exactly what we did. Day 2, last possible day we could have done this before we flew away. And choosing a daily race B in Group 4 cars, a couple of reasons for that. Firstly, daily race B, you have more opportunities in an hour to gain that DR. There's 3 races as opposed to 2 with daily race C. And these days it's quite rare that you can gain DR in daily race A. They actually just turn it off because it's just so chaotic. And also the Group 4 cars, a little bit slower, a little bit more predictable, enables you to sort of consolidate a higher starting position. There's less variables. So I really enjoyed that. And you can see I started off, okay, P7, not great. We were starting higher than that on the Sunday. So we're having to rebuild from nothing. But I improved and we went up to starting around the P2. But this is not the highest lobby. If you want to get to A+, at some point you're going to need to compete in the top split lobbies. And you can see here, now we have A+ drivers in the mix. So now we're starting P7 in the top split lobbies. Again, P7 ain't going to cut it. So went around using the Ghost now. The Ghost is absolutely critical. So use all the tools in your armory and able to get a lap time 176 in the world. Probably even that is not going to cut it. Starting, being in the top 200 in the world. Remember, that's not split by region. Your daily race was split by region. But then I was able to do a 35.9, which here 128, 130 in the world. Now we're talking. I can let you know from experience that should make it possible. And it actually really came to this race here, starting P4 in top split. Big pressure on this race. When you get to this stage, there's nothing like it. The only thing I can compare it to is when I do karting championships in real life and there's a lot on the line. And this is the last lap, the last 2 corners. You can see it's all kicking off. I'm racing here, just on an overtake, someone taking the penalty. A P6 probably wasn't going to gain us enough DR, but a P5 maybe, a P4 definitely would. So I was thinking, is the guy ahead going to get a penalty? I don't think he was too sure either. And it's fingers crossed now. And these are big pressure races. You can see in P11 there's an A+ driver on our P9. I don't know what happened back there. And the more A+ drivers you're beating, the better. That's going to be absolutely huge for your DR. And you can see I overtook an A+ Portuguese driver on the penultimate corner. His DR went down. My DR went up. Is it going to be enough? A+. We did it. It was so difficult. It took 2 days. It is way more difficult than it used to. So congratulations if you're watching in your A+. And if you're watching in your A, I can tell you it's so nice being A+. It's so nice that I'm going to be in those top split lobbies. It's so nice that I can just have that clean racing and really, really, really enjoy it. So if you're a beginner watching this, www.getfasteronline.com for the GT7 Beginner Masterclass. If you're just trying to push for that A+, I can recommend Delta. I used it. It did help me get faster if you use it in the right way. Big thanks to Coach Jave and Delta for sponsoring this video. Hope you enjoyed it. More tips videos on screen right now, and I'll see you next time.